League of Legends mimics anime, and not in an entirely good way. Alright, so kind of a hefty one, this one, but it's not as big a topic as other things on this bullet list, but here it goes. So, if you haven't heard, League of Legends is this online multiplayer. It's one of the most popular anime manga style related online multiplayers of all time, at least as far as we know. As far as we would put that to subjectivity. You see my other videos, but it's League of Legends is one of the most popular like creative online multiplayers as the world has known for like many years ongoing. At least the last almost decade or so far. Like maybe obviously more than a decade, but I don't want to over assume. But you know, because League of Legends has been on for quite a while. So in this game, you have these champions and these minions and these towers and and these nexuses and all that. It's a side scrolling, but also kind of a 3D environment where you play as these characters. You control the mouse and computer keyboard. It has various video game and anime inspired elements to it, especially the art style. But the gameplay goes that you have. I haven't explained everything about that, but the why I find particularly amusing about it is that you have the gameplay trying to mimic this idea of polarities and extremes about chaoses and orders. And what I mean by that is that this gameplay style goes about a lot of amusing entertainment values, like not so much like things like instant kill or invincibility or stuff like that, but like you have these elements where maybe in between that you have these elements where they entertain what the average otaku or comic book liker would get into. But that's what I mean by that, I guess. But maybe oversimplification. But yeah, you have all these creative ideas for champions. Some oversimplified, some overcomplicated ideas for champions and minions, and well, not the minions so much, but like the champions. Obviously, there's different classes and skins. The skins are free, obviously, but the skins the skins are the only thing you pay for. The game itself is free for the most part, but the game isn't repetitive unless you only play Summer Drift over and over, which is what most people do because that's the average part of the game anyways. But then you play the other modes of the game, and then you play the other variations of Riot Games' other games, and then you can get into other things like their animation series like they just released lately on Netflix, and so forth. So that's League of Legends for you. And then that was a bit of a slowing it short, unfortunately, but I want to get my point across quickly if I can. League of Legends, how it mimics anime, in my opinion, is that it does things where, like, obviously with the art style, but also with the way they orient the gameplay itself. And that's what I'm gonna get into with this video. Is like the way the anime mimics the video gameplay is that the way the gameplay mimics the anime is that you have this layout where the way they do combat is very much strategic based, and I believe that for what it's worth, it is very strategic based, and it can still be very fun. There's balances and imbalances that make sense, as you've seen with Super Smash Bros. Brawl or Melee, the Smash Bros. Series. I mean at that point, and other video games and other like they don't have to always be like Nintendo or whatever. They're just like they could be whatever else. But there are plenty of strategy games out there that mimic that turnout, even if they're not necessarily entertainment focused or whatever you call it. But the problem I see with this, however, is that there is an element one particular element I find in this gameplay that I find kind of disturbing and disgusting. And if you've seen my KO demos video from a long way back, then you already know how my ideals are discussed in possible ways. But something I don't like about League of Legends is the idea that there are some gameplays that are either guaranteed to win or impossible to succeed at, and so like guaranteed defeat or impossible to win, or vice versa, all those things. And then not in certain lineups, the champions are technically never going to turn out right or never possible to lose. Stuff like that, like things like where you have certain champions and minion layouts and grinding on the jungling and and then taking out the nexus at a certain point. There's certain elements where you have to be thinking all the time, which is a good thing, but you also have to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure, or even setting yourself for even a more embarrassing failure, which is when you fail at something that you should have already guaranteed your win at. And there are pros and cons of both. I dare say even pros of both, but it's just like the one I keep mentioning a lot about is the one where you're guaranteed to lose, and that can get to me a little bit, like where I know that certain champions are never supposed to win against each other, else there would be no point in playing against each other. But like But then the one I just mentioned just now, which was I didn't even think about until now, which was the when you lose, that's something you should have guaranteed your win at, and that makes you look like a botter or a noob or a troll, and most likely people will consider you being a troll or a bot, not much less a noob, even if you are a noob, unfortunately. But how that works is that in many of these games where people are very hyper attention focused, and this is my opinion, that's my perspective, when they're very hyper attention focused, if you take any time at all to explore any option you have in a game where you should have already been paying attention, even if it's for entertainment purposes, by design, if you take any time to figure something out, and this is again my perspective, in my opinion, if you take any time to figure something out, and even after trying to figure it out, you still get the hang of the game, but you're still technically a noob, many players won't see you as a noob, they'll see you as a bot or as a troll, because they don't think of it as being possible to be that bad at a game that you wouldn't have to identify as those things. And so they tend to be very hyper focused and react very toxically towards those kinds of gameplays, and that by example results in things like getting kicked or getting reprimanded on the ways. Now, obviously, this can be me projecting, since I made this video about my perspective of League of Legends, the philosophy of the gameplay, as well as the philosophy of maybe what I just went through in the gameplays. Maybe not all the time, but it was just maybe as well as projecting for that. But yeah, that didn't always happen to me. But it was just like, but it's my philosophy of both playing the game and observing from a bird's eye view. So with that in hand, I will leave you for that to think about. So I didn't explain everything about the game or even my own perspective yet. I just wanted to make sure that I got across as much as I could. But yeah, that's my idea of why League of Legends mimics anime in not an entirely good way. See you in the next video, everyone. Take care.